Spikey has been assassinated in an execution-style shooting at his North Gold Coast home. Shane Bowden was recently making headlines for his border breach.
October 12th, 2020. The tranquility of a suburban night shattered by gunfire. Shane Bowden, a notorious figure in Australia's outlaw biker scene, lies dead in his driveway. 21 bullets, a calculated execution. But who was Shane Bowden, and why was he targeted in such a brutal manner? This is the story of a man whose life and death were defined by loyalty, betrayal, and the unforgiving code of Australia's outlaw motorcycle gangs. We'll trace Bowden's journey from his rise in the biker world to the complex web of events that culminated in his assassination, a killing that shocked even hardened detectives. Born in 1974, Shane Bowden's early life gave little indication of the path he would eventually follow. Growing up in Victoria, he initially pursued a career as a professional cyclist before a series of injuries derailed those ambitions. By his late 20s, Bowden had found a different kind of brotherhood, the Finks motorcycle club. The Finks, established in Adelaide in the 1960s, had expanded their presence across Australia by the time Bowden joined in the early 2000s. Within this hierarchical world, Bowden quickly made a name for himself through his imposing physical presence and unwavering loyalty to the club. By 2006, Bowden had risen to become a key member of what police and media termed the Finks Terror Team, an enforcement arm of the club responsible for maintaining discipline and handling conflicts with rival gangs. Former police investigators described Bowden as a soldier, someone who wouldn't hesitate to act when the club required it. On March 18, 2006, the Gold Coast witnessed one of Australia's most notorious bikie incidents, the Ballroom Blitz. During a kickboxing tournament at the Royal Pines Resort, members of the Finks, including Bowden, violently confronted rivals from the Hells Angels in front of hundreds of stunned spectators. The chaotic brawl left multiple people injured. Bowden himself was shot in the leg, but still managed to stab Hells Angels member Christopher Wayne Hudson in the face. The incident resulted in multiple arrests, with Bowden receiving a 6.5-year prison sentence for his role in the violence. The time behind bars did little to diminish Bowden's status within the outlaw motorcycle community. If anything, his willingness to engage in such a public confrontation enhanced his reputation. But the Australian bikie landscape was changing, and Bowden's release in 2013 coincided with unprecedented pressure from law enforcement. In 2013, facing intense scrutiny under Queensland's tough new anti-bikie legislation, the majority of Queensland's Finks members, including Bowden, made a strategic decision. In what's known as patching over, they collectively left the Finks to join the international Mongols motorcycle club, bringing their numbers and territorial knowledge to the American-founded organization. For several years after his release, Bowden's transition to the Mongols appeared successful. He maintained his imposing presence within the club, now operating under a different patch but with many of the same associates. However, by early 2020, cracks were beginning to show. Sources within law enforcement suggest that Bowden's assertive behavior and unwillingness to step back from club operations following imprisonment had begun to create tension within the Mongols hierarchy. The once valued enforcer was increasingly viewed as a liability by some within the club's leadership. On July 1, 2020, these tensions appeared to escalate dramatically. While in Melbourne, Bowden was targeted in a drive-by shooting outside a home in Epping. He survived being shot in the lower body, but the incident marked a critical turning point. Police investigations would later suggest this was not a rival gang attack, but most likely an internal hit sanctioned by his own club. While recovering from his wounds in a Melbourne hospital, Bowden received devastating news. He had been officially expelled from the Mongols for what's termed bad standing, one of the most serious forms of rejection within bikie culture. According to police intelligence, the expulsion followed an alleged assault on a fellow Mongols member. Communications intercepted by police revealed the depth of the animosity. Former associates were explicitly forbidden from having any contact with Bowden. In the world of outlaw motorcycle gangs, such an expulsion doesn't merely represent the loss of membership, it often marks an individual as a potential target. Despite the clear danger, Bowden made a decision that would ultimately seal his fate. In August 2020, he returned to Queensland's Gold Coast, territory firmly controlled by the Mongols, and reconnected with his former club, the Finks, who had maintained a small presence despite the 2013 mass patchover. Police intelligence indicated that Bowden was actively recruiting for the Finks, attempting to rebuild the club's presence in southeast Queensland, a direct challenge to Mongols' territory and influence. For his former club, this wasn't merely a betrayal, it was a declaration of war. By October 2020, Shane Bowden was living in a rented duplex on Cox Road in Pimpama, a suburb on the northern Gold Coast. Despite warnings from police about the risk to his life, Bowden maintained many of his regular routines, including late-night gym sessions. What Bowden didn't know was that his movements were being tracked. Investigators would later discover that members of the Mongols had placed a GPS tracking device on his black BMW weeks before the murder, allowing them to monitor his location in real time. On the night of October 12, 2020, security cameras captured a silver Holden Commodore moving through the streets near Bowden's residence. Inside were at least two men, their identities concealed, waiting for their target to return home. Around midnight, Bowden finished his workout at a 24-hour fitness center in Nerang and drove home, unaware of what awaited him. He pulled into his driveway at approximately 12:10 a.m. on October 13th. As Bowden exited his vehicle and prepared to enter his home, two hooded figures emerged from the darkness. Without warning or confrontation, they opened fire. The primary shooter used what investigators would later identify as a 9mm machine pistol, capable of firing in rapid succession. 21 shots in total. Many struck Bowden in the upper body and head. He died almost instantly, collapsing in his driveway without the chance to defend himself or flee. Neighbors, awakened by the gunfire, called emergency services, but medical assistance was futile. The assailants fled the scene in the silver Commodore, driving to a predetermined location approximately 2 kilometers away, where they set the vehicle ablaze in an attempt to destroy forensic evidence. The car was reported stolen weeks earlier from New South Wales. The entire attack lasted less than a minute, a swift, calculated execution that bore all the hallmarks of a professional hit. For investigators, it was clear this was not random violence, but a carefully orchestrated assassination connected to Bowden's complicated history with outlaw motorcycle gangs. The morning after Bowden's murder, Queensland police launched Operation Sierra Arch, assembling a specialized team of detectives, intelligence analysts, and forensic experts to investigate what was immediately recognized as a complex, gang-related homicide. The investigation faced significant challenges from the outset. The perpetrators had been careful, leaving minimal physical evidence at the scene. However, a meticulous examination of Bowden's vehicle led to a crucial discovery: the GPS tracking device magnetically attached to the undercarriage of his BMW. This small device would become a central piece of evidence. Forensic analysis revealed traces of DNA that would later prove pivotal in identifying suspects. Meanwhile, detectives began the painstaking process of collecting and analyzing security camera footage from dozens of locations across the Gold Coast. For months, the investigation continued largely out of public view. Detectives conducted hundreds of interviews, analyzed phone records, and worked to penetrate the notoriously closed world of outlaw motorcycle gangs. Their breakthrough came in mid-2021. In July 2021, after 9 months of investigation, Queensland police conducted a series of coordinated raids across southeast Queensland. Among those arrested was Ian Ronald Croughton, president of a Brisbane chapter of the Mongols Motorcycle Club, along with 8 other individuals with connections to the organization. Court documents would later reveal the extent of the evidence against the accused. DNA recovered from the GPS tracking device matched samples from 2 of the suspects. Additionally, prison informants had come forward with allegations that certain accused had made incriminating statements while in custody for unrelated offenses. The arrest marked a significant milestone in Operation Sierra Arch, but investigators acknowledged that the case was far from closed. Police continued to believe that others with knowledge of the crime remained at large, protected by the code of silence that permeates outlaw motorcycle gang culture. The assassination of Shane Bowden occurred against the backdrop of evolving dynamics within Australia's outlaw motorcycle gang landscape. Southeast Queensland, with its growing population and lucrative criminal opportunities, had become contested territory among several major clubs. The conflict between the Mongols and the resurgent Finks represented more than personal animosity toward Bowden. It signaled a battle for territorial control, particularly in the drug distribution networks that generate much of these organizations' revenue. In the months following Bowden's execution, police noted increased recruitment activities by the Finks, suggesting that rather than deterring the club's resurgence, his death may have galvanized support. By early 2021, intelligence reports indicated that Finks membership in Queensland had more than doubled compared to pre-2020 numbers. Law enforcement officials expressed concern about the potential for further violence as the power balance shifted. Task forces dedicated to monitoring outlaw motorcycle gang activity increased surveillance operations, particularly focusing on known gathering places and events. The data tells a concerning story. Between 2020 and 2024, police recorded over 180 incidents classified as related to outlaw motorcycle gang conflicts in southeast Queensland alone. These range from intimidation and property damage to serious assaults and suspected arson attacks. The Bowden case has reignited debate about the effectiveness of Queensland's controversial anti-bikie legislation. While these laws have given police expanded powers to disrupt gang activities, critics argue they have simply driven operations further underground rather than eliminating them. The assassination of Shane Bowden stands as one of Australia's most stark examples of outlaw motorcycle gang violence, a calculated execution carried out with precision and brutality. As the case continues through the justice system, it serves as a grim reminder of the lethal consequences that can result from the internal politics of these organizations. In the end, the story of Shane Bowden's assassination is more than a true crime narrative. It's a window into a parallel society operating with its own rules, loyalties, and punishments, a world that occasionally intersects with mainstream Australia in bursts of violence that remind us of its persistent presence. That's it for today's story. If you like the video and want more content like this, make sure to subscribe. It really helps us keep going and bring more stories your way.